Hey everybody, Randy Ray here at The Literate Texan, coming to you pre-recorded from Driftwood Ranch. I always want to say we're live. We're live while we're recording it, but we're not while you're watching it. And I've got my good friend Forrest Jackson here with me today. He is my rare books guru. I've been a customer of his for years and years, but more importantly, we're good friends. I used to own a bookstore, and Forrest was there from the very beginning until the bitter end. And we've even stayed friends afterwards.
Yeah.
You know, he saw me through my divorce. He was not there for my wedding. I got married before I met Forrest. But anyway, he has got some really cool stuff to show off today in this video.
I'm glad that you mentioned the word show off because that's precisely what I'm doing.
That's right.
So
we're both a couple of show-offs.
Yeah, so I've been a book nerd my whole life, and I love it. It is the way to be. And in 1997, I published 2 books. I co-wrote, I guess, both of them and with friends. And I wanted to make hardcovers and paperbacks. And so I had them publish one of the books in unbound sheets that can be sewn and into proper bindings. And I went about trying to find a bookbinder who would make hardcover copies for me. I went down to Henry Nuss Bookbinders in Deep Ellum.
I remember.
Yeah. Well, by the time I got there, the business was owned by the grandson of the original bookbinder. And from what I could discern, he only cared about motorcycles and drinking beer, and not so much about bookbinding. So I saw the kind of...
He didn't really have a life of the mind in the way that we do.
It wasn't his thing. It was just the business that he found himself passed down to him. So let's see. I looked around at the examples they had. I thought, oh, these don't look so good. Then he quoted me a price of $50 each to bind these in cloth. And I thought, ugh, I can't make any money if I pay $50 for the bindings. My grandmother said, well, you should just do it yourself. Take some classes at the Craft Guild of Dallas. And that's what I did in August of 1997. So the first book that I published was called Cosmic Suicide, The Tragedy and Transcendence of Heaven's Gate, which I showed in our UFO video from a month ago or 3 weeks ago, whenever it was. And so, sure enough, did make some cloth-bound covers. One of them is in the stacks at SMU. And then I got better at bookbinding at the Craft Guild and studied with lots of different teachers. And I made one really spectacular copy of Cosmic Suicide for an entry in a competition called the DeGolyer Triennial Bookbinding Competition is what I'm going to call it. I'm sure there's some other exact phrase. And it's at SMU with a big cash prize for the best bookbinder. I've never won a prize, but I've enjoyed participating. So here is the cover of the book I bound in purple leather.
Holy mackerel.
With a black, and then the alien here, you can't see it. It glows in the dark. It was a glow-in-the-dark baseball that I got at a dollar store. So even you can't see it in the video, but it has like a fleshy texture to it, like you can imagine a fake baseball. And then silvery tooling of the UFOs and the constellation that the Hale-Bopp comet was crossing. So then it's got marbled papers in here. I'm pretty sure that's by Catherine Levine. I'm not a paper marbler. And so it was really fun to be involved in this. And the cult colors were purple and black, so I went with that. And purple's my second favorite color. I also made a protective box for it that had Marshall Applewhite's face.
How cool is that?
And it's recessed so that the part of the alien that's protruding can fit into there. And I also should mention that David Hansen, the famous robot scientist, painted the alien for me. I'm not a painter, and David is, what do you call that, a Renaissance man. He can do anything.
You know, I had one glow-in-the-dark book in my bookstore. It was a hardcover edition of Haunted by Chuck Palahniuk. And I didn't realize it was glow-in-the-dark book. Okay, I had no idea. But one night when I was closing, I locked the door and took a glance over at the shelf where it was, you know, and it was glowing. And I was like, holy mackerel, what's going on here? So I went over and realized that it was glow-in-the-dark book cover. So I showed that off to a lot of customers after that. And I had one customer come all the way from Oklahoma to check out this cool all-horror bookstore that he had heard about. And he came in and he wanted me to show him my coolest stuff. And, of course, I showed him that copy of Haunted by Chuck Palahniuk. It was the middle of the afternoon, so you couldn't see it. But he wanted to see it glow in the dark. So the only place in the store I could think of where we could get it really dark enough that it would make an impression was the bathroom. So me and this stranger from Oklahoma went in the bathroom and shut the door. Pitch black. There's no windows or anything. And, man, you could see the glow-in-the-dark book cover really well in there and stuff. And he was so excited when he left. He said, I'm going to write about this in my diary.
Did he buy the book?
No, he didn't buy the book. He didn't buy a damn thing.
Oh, no. I read that book, and it was vile.
Oh, yeah, it's awful.
I mean, in a good way.
Some of them.
Really disgusting.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Man, yeah.
I think it was chapter 3.
Yeah, there's a story called Guts in there where people really,
That was gross.
Chuck Palahniuk, you know, he's an example of what Steve Donahue would call dude bro lit.
Yeah. Well, I think he's a good writer.
Yeah, I like him. I like Lullaby, which of course it was my first Chuck Palahniuk, but Lullaby is still my favorite. Same way with Kurt Vonnegut. You know, the first Kurt Vonnegut book I read, Cat's Cradle, is my favorite. And I've read all of Vonnegut's novels.
Yeah, I guess.
And I've read almost all of Chuck Palahniuk's novels.
Grabbed you first.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna wrest this back from you.
Sorry, I digress.
Don't be. This is 3 Myths of Gods, Devils, and Beasts, and I didn't have that published in unbound section, foldable sections. So it's just what's called a perfect binding. Doesn't make for as good a hardcover, although I have made some hardcovers of it. And this and Cosmic Suicide remain in print. You can get in touch with me through Randy. Now, another book that I published, which we talked about in the last segment, was Carmilla, where Randy has.
We have 2 editions we can show off here.
He has this one that I bound in green leather with
goat skin.
Yeah, with these kind of interesting marbled in papers. And it is
beautiful.
A goat skin.
Too beautiful to read.
Full Morocco, and I think you can read it, but that's up to you if you choose to.
I don't want to tear it up.
So here's one I bound in cloth.
That's pretty too. Not as pretty as mine, though.
And it's got some marbled paper. Once again, probably done by Catherine Levine, because she's a local paper marbler. And then the frontis is an illustration by Harry O. Morris. And it's Ingrid Pitt in the portrait from The Vampire Lovers.
Nice.
Yeah. And
the great Ingrid Pitt.
Yeah, so this is, I have this still 1 copy in unbound sheets for bookbinders. And speaking of the bookbinding competition, I made one for the competition to be in it. And here's Carmilla in full goat skin with a little bit of a different spine. I'm not very good at showing these things.
It's really lovely.
Yeah, it took a lot of work.
It looks like something you get from Easton Press, only nicer.
It kind of does, yeah. And then I don't like that I use these bluish in papers, but when I bound these in, I had let me start over. When I applied the in papers, I had a different design idea for the outside, and then I needed to use it for this. And it has sewn headbands. So all the marks of a fine design binding. And I'm not much of an artist. I don't think of myself as an artist, but I guess I've done some artistic things.
Certainly a craftsman.
Yes, definitely that. So let me.
And I would describe Forrest as a Renaissance man too.
Nah. I like book nerd. Let's go with that.
He's a book nerd.
So here's a neat protective box, and this was in the DeGaulier competition this last time around. And it is The Penultimate Truth by Philip K. Dick. And I'm not going to give away much in the story, but it's an allegory in which the masses of people live underground in what they call these ant farms. And they've been told that there's a nuclear war above ground, that it's poisonous and nobody can, survive up there. And so they're making these robots to go up and fight the war. Because they're called leadies, because they're made of lead and they can withstand radiation. But what the people on the lower echelon here don't realize is that there's this wealthy oligarchy going on above ground of very few people pushing the message of this phony war down there to have the robots made to come up as servants. So Philip K. Dick was a Marxist to some extent, and so that may have informed him. Also, the novel 1984 was I could tell was a big influence on this. It's not as good as 1984, but it is a good Philip K. Dick novel, The Penultimate Truth. And so this is a binding that I made for that.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah.
A lot of these I'm seeing for the first time, too.
Yes, it also has gold edges, and it is the Blue Jay Books edition, which was a sewn paperback. So I could take it apart and re-sew it for the binding. You want to have a sewn binding, ideally. And so another thing that I made that Randy bought the other copy of, and that is in a protective box here. And it is My Work Is Not Yet Done by Thomas Ligotti. And it's the closest thing he's written to a novel. It's a novel of supernatural revenge.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, and the boss, also not giving much of a spoiler away, the boss seemingly intentionally, always mispronounces the protagonist's name as Domino. So that's why I went with that. And he uses a 9mm handgun at sometimes, so I made sure that the bullet wound there is exactly 9mm. And it's got white parchment on the inside. So it's kind of plain on the inside, but that's goatskin parchment, not paper. And then, fortunately for me, I was able to get Thomas Ligotti and Harry to sign it as well. So I made 2 of these, and I sold one to Randy. And then at a certain point, he had to sell it. And I asked him, why didn't you sell it back to me? And he said, well, since you were getting rid of it, I didn't think you'd want it back. And I said, oh, I see your point.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I'm glad that you had it for a while, and maybe someday it'll reemerge.
It's a great book. It's got a similar plot to Kings of Infinite Space by James Hines, who is a Austin-based novelist.
I think I read that one.
It's really good.
Yeah.
I've read all of James Hines' novels, and I've never been disappointed by any of them. Kings of Infinite Space was my favorite, though.
Here's The Thread That Binds, published by one of my bookbinding teachers.
Look at that.
I would say edited by Pamela Lutz. I went for kind of a 17th century style here. At least that's what I'm telling myself. This is sewn on cords that lace through the boards. And this is Levine's marbles again. And so this was on display. Other people had their own interpretation of it that were a lot more artistic. So this is interviews with private practice bookbinders. I was not interviewed for it because I was not making my living solely as a bookbinder at the time. But I know about 1/3 of the people that are interviewed in this book. And it's something, you can open it up all the way. People get hesitant about that. But if you make the book properly, then you can handle it like that. And I made a protective enclosure for this rather than a full box. So I'm just trying to quickly move along to show off, also showing off my Dallas Filth Raw Histoire t-shirt. Laura Osteen has a really interesting page on Facebook about quirkier aspects about Dallas history. So I can recommend that. All right, let me scoot back here for a second.
Don't worry, he's coming back. He's just trying to reach more books. These are amazing.
So here's one. It is kind of large, but this is the box that I made for it. And this is the first, maybe the second wooden boards book that I made. And it's called Stigmata. And this is done in what's called a Carolingian style binding, where it's very squarish with a flat back and has these tabs at the top. And it's also known as a Romanesque style binding from about the year 1200, if I remember correctly. So That's wood. And it's hard to find wood of this size that's got the proper grain direction. So it's, once again, goat skin leather, tooled. And the neat thing about this is it's the first book published by Gerald Walters. He called it Centipede Press in this, but in his next book, Salem's Lot, he changed it to the much more easily pronounced and spelled Centipede Press. And Centipede Press has just done amazing work over the past 20 years. And some of their books sell out in minutes.
And Jared's really cool, too.
Yeah, and here's some artwork by Harry Morris, and he's the one who told me about this. So I was able to get this in unbound sheets. And this is, Jared's just starting out, so he was real nice. He sent me one of the, it says, deluxe edition has been limited to 20 copies, which is autographed by our hero, Forrest Ackerman, and some
Uncle Forrest.
Yeah, some people who've passed away, like Susan Sontag. And so just people who were available to sign this at the time. And a medieval book would have had 4-edge clasps, which we'll get to soon.
When my daughters were little, I used to refer to Forrest as Uncle Forrest. And he would always remind my daughters that he was not.
I'm not your uncle.
True story.
Huh? So this one is a Centipede Press book, another wooden boards book, with the 4-edge clasps made of brass. And it's Nosferatu.
Well, a clasp or something you don't see every day.
Yeah, I love doing special
Try finding that at Barnes & Noble.
The brocade on the doublure here. Because I like to make these books so that goth girls gasp when they see them. That's really a motivation for me, hearing that gasp. And so, here, this guy's made plenty of people gasp. One of the scariest Draculas ever. Maybe the scariest. So it's all essays about Dracula and Nosferatu. And here's the Herzog version.
Nice.
Yeah, so let's see if I got an autographed version in the back here on the colophon page. I don't remember. I don't think I did.
That Werner Herzog version's great.
Yeah, this one's not autographed by anyone. But
It's Willem Dafoe.
No, you're thinking. Oh, wait, Herzog's was not Willem Dafoe. You're thinking of like the Night of the Vampire or something. What is it called? It was who was the Herzog Dracula? Klaus Kinski.
Okay, that's right. You are right. Yeah, because there's a movie about the Werner Herzog movie. And that's the one that stars Willem Dafoe as Klaus Kinski, as Nosferatu.
Yeah, as Max Schreck.
Yeah.
Which was an interesting show, for sure.
Right.
Here's another one, Chimera.
Oh, that's pretty.
It's very plain. I may do some tooling on that someday. This is called a springback binding. And it was made for ledgers.
Nice.
To open up right to the middle.
It's not hoarding if it's books.
Yeah, and here's some more marble paper. And let's see what this says here. Chimera. And it's just essays and things that Jared found of interest to put in here. And I think that's the only, springback that I'm ever going to make, probably.
Definitely support Jared at Centipede Press if you can. And Forrest.
Well, I don't know.
And me.
To what?
Support me.
Yeah.
It's easy just to support me because all you have to do is hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. I'm joking. I don't ever ask people to like and subscribe. Well, a lot of people do though.
I did this subscribe, but I don't get in there and hit all the like this, like that, and interact.
Fine.
Yeah.
And comment. Like, comment, and subscribe. Yeah. I'm so tired of hearing that mess.
Here's Poe's bibliography and commentary, which is 2 books bound as one. The neat thing about this one, I made this in Idaho at Jim Croft's traditional hand bindery where you camp out, essentially, and do medieval style binding. So that's wood, leather, and intentionally left this open so you could see the structure. As Jim says, show your work.
Nice.
And then this was published in the 1930s, but a letterpress printing. So it's on good paper. He thinks it's actually paper made by Douglas Cockrell, but I don't have proof of that. But he is a paper expert, Jim Croft. And I love collecting Poe books published before 1850. My understanding, though, is this is sort of an amateur bibliographer, so you can't expect every single thing in this book to be 100% accurate, but it's interesting to read anyhow.
You can tell my old dog has gotten deaf because he keeps knocking on those books and the old dog doesn't react.
Yeah.
The young dog is out in the backyard, thank goodness.
So here's one that I made.
Forrest doesn't like dogs as much as I do.
I'm a cat person. Actually, I'm a bat person. And I love snakes as well, but this venomous one crossed my path, this copperhead. And so I shot it and beheaded it and tanned it and bound this book. Unfortunately, I'm not much good at tanning, so some wear has gone on this. This is the Guild of Book Workers 100th anniversary catalog, which shows other binders. Let's see if I can find something. And so this was on display in a competition before this deteriorated. Now I'm going to show you one that's even worse. So like I said, I do like snakes and I don't kill them, but if it's a rattlesnake in my way, then I'm going to do something about it. And some insects did something about it at my house. This is a memorial volume for Jan Svoboda, who was a Czech bookbinder I studied under. He's one of the top in the world. So we did it, this is in his honor, printed by one of his friends, remembering Jan Svoboda. It's an interesting printing technique. That's on a lithostone, that photo. So, unfortunately, the bugs got to it. Let me see, I only have a couple of more to show, and then we'll be done. Here, Randy, you can show this one.
I get to play Vanna White again here in a minute. What is this one?
We read that for your book club.
We sure did. The Face That Must Die by Ramsey Campbell. See him doing the Vanna White thing here. Oh, this is beautiful. Look at the paper there.
It's a slasher novel, I guess you'd say.
Yes. Bound in goatskin, just like my copy of Carmilla.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a different grain of goat skin. I buy most of my skins from Harmington leather out of England. And then here we are, copy number 4, signed by Ramsey Campbell, Poppy C. Bright, and J.K. Potter. And that was an early one for Centipede Press. I tried to sell this at auction through Heritage Auctions, but it got no bids. I did bind really nice edition, 2 copies of his Salem's Lot, and I sold both of them. I regret selling both of them. And then I found out that one of them may have perished in a flood.
Oh, I regret selling my copy.
Oh, you had the Centipede Press edition of that too?
Yeah, the one you bound. It's beautiful.
Oh.
Cost a fortune.
Are we still talking the same book?
Yeah. Yeah, it was huge.
Okay. I didn't think I sold you one of those.
He did.
Okay.
He did. I don't remember who I sold it to. Actually, I probably sold it to Don.
Yeah, I think that's what you told me.
Yeah, I think I sold it to Don down at Recycle Books.
I suspect you're thinking of a different book, but we can talk more
about it. It was definitely Salem's Lot. It had the huge... it was huge. It was like this big. It was so... I mean, it was bigger than I could show. Yeah. I mean, it was like this big.
Cloth-bound edition.
Yeah, it was incredible.
Okay. So I made them in leather. Only 2 of them in leather.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if... Yeah, I think I had the cloth-bound.
Yeah, you saw had the cloth-bound.
I still spent a fortune on it.
Yeah, it's worth more now.
Yeah. Yeah, everything I sold is worth more now.
So
the only thing that's not worth more now is me. You know, I'm cheap, but I'm not free.
So I guess I'll show you this one last thing. and tell you everybody that I do this bookbinding at the Craft Guild of Dallas, and you don't have to take a class from me. We've got a great teacher named Laura Easterling up there. She teaches the beginner classes.
Look at this.
And I teach beginners too. So this one was for an exhibition we did at the Craft Guild called Skyscrapers. And so the book was already, it was a book that was already published, so you bought it to disbind. And so I made it to look like this. With this is paper, and then I did the tooling around the gray leather, and I don't know if that's platinum or palladium to mimic these other dots. And so, it's evocative of a skyscraper.
It also looks like an Alfred Hitchcock movie.
Oh, okay. Is it because it's black and white?
Well, no, just because it's...
What's the skyscraper that has that kind of... Is it the Empire State Building that has this kind of look to it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
That's why I did that. And I'm trying to think what else I need to say about bookbinding.
What else can you say?
It's exciting.
It is exciting.
Yeah.
And I did not realize it was going to be exciting until I met Forrest.
So, yeah, I know I'm repeating myself, but Craft Guild of Dallas, and they teach pottery and drawing, painting, glass arts. What else do they do there? Woodworking, they're starting to do.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's near Addison Airport in Dallas. I don't take commissions to repair books or bind them, but I guess I would never say never. So yeah, I got into this book. I didn't know I was going to become a bookbinder and then a bookbinding instructor. Never planned on it, but it kind of happened to me, and I'm happy it did.
It's really fascinating to me.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a side of the book niche that I was heretofore unaware of.
Oh, okay. Yeah, fine binding, fine leather bindings.
Okay.
Yeah. Neat.
Well, we're going to wrap this one up, but I'm sure that Forrest will be back again soon.
With pulp magazines.
Pulp magazines, that's right. Weird Tales, in fact.
Yeah.
And maybe more. But thanks for watching, and we'll be back soon.